Stop waiting for your breakthrough to come from outside of you. It's already within you, and this moment right here is proof you're ready to unlock it. If you've ever looked at your financial life and thought, there has to be more than this, you're right. There is more. More clarity, more power, more peace, more purpose, and yes, more money. But not the kind of money that just passes through your hands and leaves you empty. I'm talking about divine money. Money that flows with meaning, money that matches your purpose, money that moves through your life with direction and dignity. You weren't born to struggle your entire life. You weren't created to work yourself into exhaustion just to barely get by. You weren't meant to chase money like it's your master. That's not truth. That's survival, and survival ends now. This is your moment to rise above the noise, to break every mental chain you've carried about lack, fear, and not enough. The real battle has never been in your wallet. It's always been in your beliefs. Your breakthrough starts the moment you understand that money is not random. It's not just hard work. It's not just timing. It responds to laws. Divine law. You've seen what happens when you ignore these laws. Cycles that repeat, bills that pile up, anxiety that won't quit. But today something shifts. Today you learn what no one taught you. Not in school, not in your family. Not in the system that profits off your confusion. Today you begin to see money through divine eyes. Because once you understand how these spiritual laws work, you stop living beneath your calling. You stop begging for what you were meant to command. And you start aligning with truth that sets you free. Not someday, but now. This isn't motivation. This is restoration. This is the moment you take back control, not by forcing, but by flowing with laws that never fail. These truths don't just help you make more money, they help you become the person who's ready to hold it, manage it, and multiply it. This isn't about hoping something changes. This is about becoming the change. No more waiting, no more doubting, no more shrinking to fit a life that keeps you small. You're stepping into knowledge that will break patterns, heal your mindset, and restore your authority. You're stepping into clarity that makes confusion irrelevant, and you're stepping into laws so powerful they'll touch not just your finances, but every area of your life. Your time is sacred, your voice is needed, your calling is real, and your abundance is overdue. The laws you're about to receive aren't theory, they're truth, and truth doesn't ask permission, it sets things in order. These laws will challenge you, they will stretch you, but they will also bless you. And the blessing will be undeniable. You don't need more stress. You don't need more hustle. You need alignment. You need wisdom. You need divine order. And when those are in place, money starts moving differently. This is more than a video. This is a shift, a breaking open, a new chapter, and you are ready. Not because everything is perfect, not because you've done everything right, but because grace has brought you here, and now truth is going to carry you further. Watch with full attention, listen with your spirit, not just your ears, because everything that's been held back, everything that's been delayed, everything you thought was lost, is about to be restored. The laws of divine money are about to enter your life. And when they do, nothing will be the same again. Number 1, the law of seed and harvest. Before you ever see money in your hand, it begins as something planted inside of you. Your thoughts, your choices, your beliefs, they are seeds. They are always growing, even when it feels like nothing is happening. That's why the first law is so powerful. The law of seed and harvest doesn't work sometimes. It works every time, whether you are aware of it or not. This law is shaping your life right now. If what you're experiencing financially is frustration, lack, or anxiety, that's the harvest from the seeds you've already planted. But the most freeing thing you can understand is this: your harvest can change, because your seed can change. Your future can shift the moment you begin to shift the way you sow. Every word you speak about money is a seed. When you say you never have enough, when you say money slips away too fast, when you say you're just not lucky with money, those words don't just vanish into the air. They go into the soil of your life, and they grow. That's not superstition, that's divine law. You were never meant to speak fear over your finances. You were created to speak truth, to speak faith, and to speak what you desire, not what you dread. You're not here to echo the problem. You're here to declare the solution before it shows up. This is where people get discouraged. They want instant results. But no farmer sows a seed and demands fruit the next morning. The wise person understands the harvest always takes time. There's a season for planting, a season for watering, and a season for reaping. You might be in a season right now where you've planted better thoughts, better habits, and better prayers, but you're not seeing the breakthrough yet. That doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means the law is working. The seed is doing what it was designed to do, grow underground, in silence, until the day it pushes through. And that moment, that breakthrough, comes to those who stay faithful in the waiting. You don't need to wait for someone else to plant for you. The moment you decide to plant generosity, plant confidence, plant discipline, that's the moment the ground begins to shift under your feet. But don't stop there. What you feed your mind every day becomes the weather around your seed. Negativity is like a harsh wind, and doubt is like a cold frost. But faith, peace, gratitude, those are the sunshine and rain that bring the harvest to life. That's why your daily environment matters. What you say, what you listen to, who you listen to, all of it is feeding the soil you're living in. You were never created to live by chance. You were created to live by law, divine law. And one of the most unbreakable ones is this: whatever you plant, you will reap. No one is exempt from this truth. So if you want to see a life where money flows with ease, where there's peace instead of panic, and where you're no longer hustling from a place of fear, then it starts here, with the seeds you plant, because no amount of effort can grow what wasn't planted, and no amount of worry can speed up what needs time. This is the part most people miss. The seed doesn't only represent your thoughts, it's also your actions. The way you treat money, even a little bit, determines what comes next. If you complain while giving, if you fear while spending, if you hoard while receiving, you're planting more struggle. But when you give with confidence, when you spend with wisdom, when you receive with joy, the harvest responds in kind. It doesn't matter if you're working with $1 or 1,000. The energy behind it determines its multiplication. The seed doesn't care about the number. It cares about the nature of how it was sown. And here's a truth too many ignore. The harvest doesn't always come from the same place you planted. You may be faithful in your work, disciplined in your spending, wise in your saving, and yet, the breakthrough might come from an unexpected place. An open door you never saw coming. A solution you didn't imagine. That's why it's so important not to judge your seed by what you see in the moment. Just because you don't see results in your current job or business or effort, doesn't mean the law isn't working. It is, but sometimes the return comes from a different direction. Be open to that. Every time you choose to think differently, to speak differently, to act differently about money, you are planting a new future. And it's not just about money, it's about your mindset. It's about your peace. It's about living from a place where you no longer feel like a slave to bills, a slave to stress, or a slave to shame. The seed you plant changes the way you stand in the world. It gives you dignity. It gives you clarity. It gives you hope again. There are people watching this right now who've carried years of fear around money. They've been told they're bad with it. They've made mistakes. They've felt stuck. But that story does not have to keep repeating. You are not cursed. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are simply someone who hasn't been taught how to plant the right seed yet. And the beauty is, that can change today. Right now. Because the moment you start honoring your thoughts, your words, and your habits, is the moment you start shaping a harvest that looks nothing like your past. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing. You just have to begin. The harvest isn't for the most talented, the most educated, or the most connected. It's for those who plant with intention and stay the course. You have more power than you think. Your words are not small. Your decisions are not pointless. Everything you do is connected to something greater. The truth is, this isn't about chasing money. It's about alignment with divine law. When you line up with truth, peace follows, provision follows. You no longer chase the harvest. The harvest begins to chase you. Not because you forced it, but because you honored the law. That's the power of planting with clarity, with courage, and with belief. It transforms not just your finances, but your future. And the best part, it all begins inside of you, right where you are, right now. Number 2, the law of stewardship. Everything you've been given in life, your time, your talents, your energy, your resources, and yes, your money, is something you're responsible for. Whether it's a little or a lot, it was entrusted to you for a reason. Not to be wasted, not to be buried, but to be managed with care, with wisdom, and with purpose. That's what stewardship is about. It's not about how much you have. It's about how well you manage what's already in your hands. And the truth is, most people don't realize how powerful this law is when it comes to money. People are constantly asking for more, dreaming about more, even praying for more, but they overlook the simple question, are you taking care of what you already have? It's easy to wish for abundance, but real growth starts when you honor what you've been given. If you don't respect $10, you won't respect 1,000. If you can't track a small budget, you won't control a big one. This law doesn't bend for anyone. When you take what's in your hands seriously, no matter how small, you're showing the universe that you're ready for more. You're not proving it to anyone else. You're proving it to yourself. Stewardship is not about perfection. It's about awareness, being present with what you have, knowing what's coming in, knowing where it's going, and making decisions that reflect discipline instead of impulse. When you make room in your life to handle your money with thoughtfulness instead of chaos, you send a signal that says, I'm ready to take responsibility. I'm ready to grow. I'm ready to rise above old habits, old patterns, and old excuses. This is one of the most honest and raw parts of transforming your relationship with money. Because stewardship isn't flashy. It's not always exciting. It's not about sudden wealth. It's about consistent, intentional decisions that build real strength over time. And that's where people either rise or stay stuck. Because the truth is, it's not hard to make money. It's hard to keep it. It's hard to grow it when you haven't trained yourself to manage it. That's why the law of stewardship is not just wise, it's necessary. When you start being intentional with what you have, even if it's small, your mindset changes. You start seeing money not as a source of stress, but as something that responds to structure. You no longer live in reaction mode. You live in leadership mode. You stop avoiding your finances, and you start facing them. That shift, though it sounds simple, is the difference between financial peace and constant pressure. Because avoidance never brings answers. Avoidance brings more chaos. But when you steward what you have, you invite clarity, control, and eventually growth. One of the most misunderstood ideas in the world of money is that more income will fix everything. But more money doesn't fix poor stewardship. In fact, it often magnifies it. If your habits don't change, your story doesn't change. It's like trying to pour more water into a bucket with holes in the bottom. Until you patch the leaks, no amount will ever feel like enough. The leaks are your habits. The leaks are the moments when you choose convenience over wisdom. The leaks are the times when you say yes to something you can't afford just to feel better for a moment. And those leaks will stay until you decide to take ownership of your financial life. This isn't about being hard on yourself. It's about being honest. Real change only happens when you get real about where you are. And real stewardship doesn't mean you never mess up. It means you keep showing up. You keep learning. You keep paying attention. You treat your money like something worth managing instead of something that controls you. Because the truth is, if you don't take care of your money, it will disappear. Not by magic, but by mismanagement. Your money responds to order. It responds to clarity. It responds to attention. Just like a garden grows when it's tended to, your finances grow when you take care of them. When you ignore them, they wither. That's not punishment, that's just law. And when you start honoring this law, even in small ways, you open the door to greater blessings. You prove that you can be trusted with more. Because money is not just a tool, it's a test. Not a test of your worth, but a test of your awareness. Are you paying attention to what you've been given? Are you using it wisely? Are you planning for tomorrow while honoring today? Sometimes the reason more hasn't come into your life is not because you don't deserve it, but because the space for it isn't ready. Stewardship prepares the space. It tells the universe, I'm ready. It tells opportunity, I'm equipped. It tells increase, I've cleared the way. And once you live that way consistently, You won't have to chase abundance. It will begin to flow toward you, because when you manage well, you grow well. That's the way this law works. This law also brings peace. When you manage your money well, you sleep better. You stop fearing the unknown. You stop dreading the bills. You stop avoiding the truth. You step into your power. You look your financial life in the face and say, I'm not afraid of you anymore. I've got a plan. I've got a vision. I've got discipline. And that inner strength begins to reflect in your outer world. You stop wasting. You stop worrying. And you start living from a place of stability instead of survival. You don't need to be rich to start applying this law. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to start where you are. Track your spending. Set a plan. Prioritize what matters. Eliminate what drains you. Respect every dollar. And most of all, respect yourself enough to be honest about where your money is going and why. Because stewardship is not about control. It's about freedom. Freedom to live without guilt. Freedom to grow without fear. Freedom to trust yourself with more. That freedom starts with one decision: to stop running from your money and start managing it. Not for status, not for comparison, but because you deserve peace, you deserve clarity, and you deserve a financial life that reflects who you truly are: wise, capable, and deeply worthy of abundance. Stewardship makes that possible, and it starts with what's already in your hand. Number 3, the law of tithing and first fruits. There's a moment in every person's life when they look at what they have and ask, is it enough? That quiet worry that creeps in during uncertain seasons, that fear that maybe there won't be enough to get through the month, to pay the bills, to keep up. But something powerful happens when you rise above that fear and choose to give, even when it feels like you don't have much. That's what the law of tithing and first fruits is about. Not about money alone, but about trust, about alignment, about putting your faith in motion before your eyes see the result. When you give from the first of what you receive, instead of waiting to see what's left over, you're sending a bold message to the universe. I trust the source, not just the supply. You're saying, I believe I'm supported. I believe I'm sustained. I believe there's more where this came from. And that belief has a ripple effect. It lifts your thinking out of scarcity and plants you in a place of strength. Because you're no longer holding on to money like it's the only lifeline you've got. You're honoring a divine principle that says giving opens the gates for more to flow in. People often think tithing is only about religion or rules, but it's deeper than that. It's a timeless principle that applies whether you give to a church, a cause, a person in need, or even invest in something that helps others grow. It's not about the institution, it's about the intention. When your heart is in alignment with gratitude, and you choose to give from the top, not from what's left over, you're activating a law that multiplies not just money, but peace, confidence, and divine flow in your life. You don't have to give big to start. You just need to give consistently, with a heart that's open. The law doesn't respond to the number, it responds to the spirit behind it. If you give with fear, you block the blessing. If you give with resentment, you block the return. But when you give with faith, even if it's small, it plants something powerful. It plants a belief that says, I'm not operating out of lack. I'm living from overflow. This law isn't about loss. It's about circulation. Money isn't meant to be clutched and hidden away like it's going to vanish. It's meant to move, to breathe, to be part of a living system of energy that flows through you and to you. The moment you stop the flow with fear or hoarding, you're cutting yourself off from the source. But when you open your hands and give, you create a channel for more to come through. What most people don't understand is that the first part of anything carries power. The first breath of the day, the first thought you think, the first words you speak. They set the tone. They set the frequency. That's why the first portion of what you receive financially carries such weight. When you honor that part by giving it intentionally, you're not just giving money, you're setting a tone of trust for everything that follows. You're declaring that fear won't run your financial life anymore. You're putting faith ahead of fear, vision ahead of control. There's also something beautiful that happens in your relationship with money when you give first. It softens your attachment. It breaks the illusion that money is your master. It reminds you that you are in partnership with divine provision, not in slavery to your paycheck. You stop measuring your value by what you can hold, and start recognizing your value by what you're willing to release, knowing that it always comes back multiplied in ways you don't expect. Giving from the first of what you receive isn't always easy at first. It requires courage. It requires a new way of thinking. You may feel the pull to hold back, to wait until things feel more secure. But the truth is, nothing grows in fear. Growth comes from movement. And giving is movement. It shifts the energy around you. It changes your relationship with both giving and receiving. Because the two are connected. When you struggle to give, you'll also struggle to receive. But when you open up the front end, the back end opens too. That's how this law works. When you apply this law in your life, you start to experience something different. You feel lighter. You stop obsessing over every dollar. You begin to sense a rhythm, a flow, a kind of divine timing that replaces panic with peace. You'll find yourself in situations where what you need shows up right on time. Not because you figured it all out, but because you honored the principle. You moved in faith. You gave from your heart, and the universe responded. There's also something profoundly grounding about giving from the first. It humbles you in the best way. It reminds you that you're not the source, you're the steward. That everything you receive is connected to something greater than you. And when you treat it that way, it creates alignment. Things begin to click. Doors open. Favor shows up where it didn't before. Not because you forced it, but because you aligned with the law. People spend so much energy chasing money, stressing about money, fearing what will happen if they lose it. But when you live by the law of tithing and first fruits, you take your power back. You're no longer begging for provision. You're standing in the flow of it. You're no longer asking, how do I get more? You're living from the truth that more is already on the way because your heart is open and your hands are ready. You won't always see the return immediately. Sometimes the harvest looks different than what you expected, but the return always comes. Sometimes it's in unexpected income. Sometimes it's in protected health. Sometimes it's in open doors. Sometimes it's in inner peace. The law works in layers, but it always works. If you've never applied this law before, don't wait until you feel ready. Start now. Start with whatever you have. Choose a percentage. Choose a cause. Choose someone who inspires growth. But give it with clarity, not with fear. Give it with joy, not with guilt. Give it with the boldness that says, I am not afraid to trust. Because when you give first, you declare to the world that you are not living from leftovers. You are living from the divine. And the life that flows from that space is a life no longer controlled by lack, no longer afraid of what's next, no longer stuck in survival. It is a life of trust, of generosity, and of abundance that continues to grow. That is the quiet power of honoring the first. That is the unseen strength of giving from the heart. And that is how the law of tithing and first fruits begins to reshape not just your finances, but your entire life. ChatGPT said. Number 4, the law of multiplication. There is a law that works quietly, behind the scenes of every choice you make, every dollar you earn, every moment you decide to take what you have and do something more with it. That law is multiplication. It's not based on luck. It's not based on chance. It's based on what you do with what's already in your hands. This law says that what you sow will not only come back, it will come back multiplied. It's a principle that operates every single day, whether you realize it or not. The reason so many people miss out on this law is not because they're not capable. It's because they're waiting for more before they move, instead of moving with what they already have. Multiplication doesn't start with a massive amount. It starts with a seed. One thought, one decision, one act of faith. That one seed has the power to create more. But it only grows when it's used. If you keep it tucked away, if you're afraid to take a risk, if you keep waiting for the perfect conditions, then that seed stays small. But when you take what you have, no matter how little it seems, and you put it to work, you open the door to increase. You activate the law. You shift your environment from limitation to expansion. Money doesn't multiply on its own. It multiplies when it's placed in motion with purpose. If you're holding on tight, constantly afraid to spend or invest or give, You're keeping it in a place of stagnation. Multiplication only shows up when there's movement, whether that's investing in something that grows over time, or building a skill that opens more doors, or planting into someone else's life. It only grows when it goes. When you use money with intention, when you put it into something that builds, the return begins to take shape. The beauty of this law is that it doesn't require perfection. It requires faith and action. You don't have to know everything. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to stop waiting for ideal conditions and start multiplying what's in your reach. One of the biggest blocks to multiplication is the idea that once I get more, then I'll do more. But this law doesn't wait for more. It responds to what you do with what you already have. If you're not multiplying at the level you're at now, more won't fix it. It'll only magnify the lack of direction. When you work this law, you begin to shift your focus from just getting money to growing money. There's a difference between earning and multiplying. Earning is about effort. Multiplying is about strategy. It's about placing what you earn into places that expand your reach, your impact, and your peace of mind. You might start small, but when your thinking shifts from spending to multiplying, your life starts to reflect that mindset. You begin to move with purpose. You stop wasting energy. You become more aware of opportunities around you, because now your eyes are trained on growth, not just survival. This doesn't just apply to investments or business. It applies to your mindset, your relationships, your habits. Are you multiplying your peace? Or are you multiplying your stress? Are you planting into what builds your future? Or are you feeding cycles that keep you small? Multiplication isn't neutral. It will work with whatever you give it. That's why some people multiply worry, debt, and disorder, not because they want to, but because they keep feeding the wrong things. The law doesn't judge, it just responds. If you feed fear, fear grows. If you feed wisdom, wisdom multiplies. If you feed generosity, you'll see increase. If you feed chaos, you'll see more confusion. That's how the law works, and that's why awareness is everything. One of the clearest ways to see multiplication at work is to look at how small decisions made daily create massive change over time. You don't need to make one giant leap, you just need to be consistent. The same way a small investment can grow through compound interest, your small habits, choosing to save, choosing to budget, choosing to learn, create a future that looks nothing like where you started. But it requires intention. Multiplication doesn't happen by accident, it happens by decision. There's something deeply empowering about knowing you're not at the mercy of your current situation. You're not stuck with the amount you have now. You're not limited by your background, your mistakes, or your starting point. What matters is your mindset and your movement. If you start using what you have, however small, with purpose, with vision, and with clarity, then increase is inevitable. Not because it's magic, but because the law is working through you. And this law isn't just about money itself, it's about the capacity to grow in every area of your life. When you begin to think like a multiplier, you stop reacting and start creating. You stop waiting and start building. You stop complaining and start expanding. You begin to realize that every dollar is not just currency, it's a choice. Every moment is not just time, it's a chance to shift your direction. That's where true financial confidence begins to grow. When you realize you're not powerless, you're a multiplier. And what you do with your money, your words, your thoughts, your time, it all matters. Most people are trained to survive. Very few are trained to multiply. Survival says, just get by. Multiplication says, grow beyond where you are. It's a mindset that doesn't stop when the bills are paid. It thinks beyond the basics. It plans. It expands. It asks, how can I make what I have work harder? Not from a place of pressure, but from a place of purpose. Because you understand that your life wasn't meant to stay in maintenance mode. You were created to rise, to grow, to overflow. Multiplication changes your relationship with risk too. You stop seeing risk as something to fear and start seeing it as a part of the process. You understand that calculated risks, when taken with wisdom and intention, are what unlock the next level. Playing it safe might protect you for a while, but it won't take you where you're meant to go. The law of multiplication is activated through boldness, through movement, through choices that stretch you out of the comfort zone of lack and into the strength of stewardship and strategy. You have what it takes to multiply. Not because you're lucky, not because you have more than others, but because the law responds to the one who acts in alignment with it. When you begin to see everything in your life as a seed, your money, your decisions, your time, then you stop wasting and start planting, and what you plant with intention, multiply. This law will not leave you where you started. It will take you from survival to stability, from lack to legacy, from confusion to clarity. But it starts when you stop waiting for more and begin multiplying what's already in your hands. That's the shift that changes everything. That's where your power begins to rise. That's where growth becomes unstoppable. Number 5, the law of contentment and gratitude. There is a place inside you where peace lives. Not the peace that comes from a full bank account, a new house, or financial approval from others, but a deeper kind of peace. A peace that doesn't shake when the numbers in your account go up and down. A peace that remains even when things are uncertain. That peace is rooted in contentment, and contentment doesn't mean settling. It doesn't mean giving up on growth or pretending you don't want more. It means learning how to stand strong and grounded while you grow, to be thankful while you build, to be whole while you rise. This law, the law of contentment and gratitude, is what keeps your heart aligned while you pursue more. Because if you don't learn to be grateful now, you won't magically become grateful when things improve. Gratitude isn't a reaction to success, it's the soil that success grows in. When your heart is full of appreciation for what you already have, you create space for more to arrive. You become magnetic to increase because you're no longer sending the energy of desperation. You're sending the energy of readiness. So many people are stuck in a cycle of lack, not because they truly have nothing, but because they're constantly focused on what they don't have. They see every missing dollar, every unpaid bill, every delay, and they let it take over their mindset. That mindset creates stress, it creates pressure, it creates more lack. But the moment you shift from focusing on what's missing to appreciating what's present, the atmosphere around you changes. Suddenly you notice small wins. You recognize growth. You celebrate progress. That celebration, even in its simplest form, invites more. Gratitude is not passive, it's powerful. It moves things, it resets your energy. It reminds you that you are not empty, you are already in possession of something good. Even if it's just the strength to try again, even if it's just breath in your lungs and a reason to fight. That awareness brings you into the present, and in the present, everything becomes possible again. You stop chasing from a place of fear and start attracting from a place of peace. Contentment isn't laziness, it's clarity. It's knowing that you are enough, that this moment is enough, and that while more may come, it doesn't define your worth. You can be fully present, fully grateful, and still pursue growth. The key is learning how to celebrate where you are, even while you're headed somewhere greater. When you live this way, you stop feeling defeated by the process. You start finding joy in it. You begin to see that every step matters. Every lesson matters. Every quiet moment of patience is building something inside you that's just as valuable as the money you're after. There's something deeply freeing about being content. You stop comparing. You stop measuring yourself against someone else's timeline. You stop chasing symbols of success and start living your own truth. That freedom gives you room to create, to build, to move with clarity instead of pressure. When you are content, you are no longer controlled by envy, by fear, or by the need to prove anything. You're grounded, and when you're grounded, you're powerful. People often think they need more to be thankful, but it works the other way around. The more thankful you are, the more you begin to see. Not just financially, but emotionally, spiritually, creatively. Your vision expands, your mind sharpens, your capacity grows. You begin to spot opportunities that used to go unnoticed. You begin to feel peace in moments that used to bring stress. You begin to enjoy what you have instead of always needing more to feel worthy. The law of contentment and gratitude is not just about emotion, it's a mindset, a daily decision. Gratitude is not a one-time thank you. It's a lifestyle, a way of seeing the world, a way of recognizing value even in what feels small or incomplete. And when you see value in what you have, you begin to treat it differently. You manage your money with more care. You stop wasting time. You start using your energy on what matters because you realize everything you have is part of your path, not a mistake, not a punishment, but a part of the process that's shaping you for more. This law works in silence. You may not see instant results, but it's working under the surface. Gratitude brings stability. It helps you hold on when everything feels shaky. It reminds you that your worth isn't tied to your wallet. It protects your heart from bitterness. It gives you patience in the waiting. And as you stay grounded in contentment, the financial breakthroughs begin to come. Not because you chased harder, but because you aligned deeper. Contentment doesn't mean you ignore your needs. It means you meet your needs without resentment. It means you accept the season you're in without labeling it as failure. It means you hold the door open for blessings instead of slamming it shut with complaints. That posture of appreciation creates space. Space for new ideas. Space for provision. Space for growth without burnout. Gratitude also shifts your conversations. When you're grateful, your words change. You stop repeating stories of defeat. You stop dragging your energy through endless complaints. You start lifting your own spirit by the way you speak. And when your words change, your energy changes. And when your energy changes, everything around you begins to respond. This law doesn't ask you to fake joy. It asks you to find something real, right where you are, and hold on to it. A roof over your head, a lesson learned, a moment of quiet progress. Something to be thankful for. Even the smallest spark of appreciation can reignite your hope. That hope carries you forward, fuels your decisions, and reminds you that better days are not just possible, they're on the way. You're not falling behind, you're preparing. You're building something that will last. And if you can learn to honor the process, to stay content and thankful through it, then when abundance comes, you'll be ready for it. Not just financially, but mentally and emotionally. You won't be ruled by fear anymore. You'll be anchored in peace. That's the power of this law. It doesn't just improve your relationship with money. It transforms your relationship with life. It teaches you that joy isn't found in more, it's found in presence. That fulfillment doesn't wait until everything is perfect. It begins with appreciation, and from that place of gratitude, more begins to flow, more clarity, more favor, more abundance. Because now you're no longer chasing, you're aligned, and that's when everything begins to shift. Number 6, the law of diligence and discipline. There's a truth that many people don't want to face. Success doesn't show up because you wish for it. It shows up because you work for it, with steady hands and clear focus, even when no one is watching. This is where the law of diligence and discipline comes into play. It's not glamorous. It doesn't always feel exciting. But it is one of the most powerful forces behind lasting financial breakthrough. People want overnight change. They want instant reward. But this law doesn't operate on short bursts of energy. It responds to consistency, to character, to commitment over time. Diligence isn't about grinding yourself into exhaustion. It's about showing up fully present in the things that matter, again and again. It's about managing your energy wisely, doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. It's about choosing progress over perfection, movement over excuses. There are no shortcuts with this law. You can't skip the process. You can't cheat the system. If you want lasting financial peace, you must build it brick by brick, habit by habit, choice by choice. Discipline is the force that helps you say no to what drains you and yes to what grows you. When you live with discipline, you stop making decisions based on emotions and start making them based on purpose. You stop chasing comfort and start choosing direction. That's how your money starts to move in the right direction, not by impulse, but by intention. You don't spend just because it feels good in the moment. You spend because it aligns with your future. You save because you value stability. You invest because you see beyond the now. People underestimate how much power lives in daily choices. The way you wake up, the way you plan, the way you talk to yourself, the way you manage your time, all of it adds up. When you build discipline into those areas, your finances begin to reflect that stability. You stop wondering where your money went. You start telling it where to go. You stop reacting and start directing. That shift changes everything. You don't need to be naturally disciplined to begin. You just need to make one decision at a time. Structure doesn't come from personality, it comes from practice. You teach yourself to follow through. You keep your promises to yourself. You build momentum with small wins. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to be committed. Even when it's inconvenient. Especially when it's inconvenient. Diligence means you do what others won't so you can live how others can't. While some people quit halfway through, you keep going. While others are chasing the next quick fix, you're focused on building something real. That doesn't mean you don't get tired. It doesn't mean you don't feel discouraged. It means you keep moving anyway, because you understand that discipline leads to freedom. And real freedom, financial freedom, emotional freedom, time freedom, only comes when you master your daily habits. There's a silent strength in those who live by this law. They may not be flashy, but they're stable. They're focused. They're not chasing validation. They're building legacy. You can trust people who are diligent because they're rooted. They don't just talk about goals, they live them. And you can become that kind of person starting now. You don't have to wait for a new year or a clean slate. Discipline begins today, in the way you show up for yourself, the way you follow through on your word, the way you treat your responsibilities. Discipline is what protects your potential. It's what keeps you moving when motivation disappears. Motivation is loud, it comes and goes. Discipline is quiet, but it stays. When you build a lifestyle around this principle, you start to notice your results become more predictable. You're no longer riding emotional roller coasters. You're walking a path with clarity. Even when life throws challenges your way, you're not shaken. You've built systems, you've trained yourself to respond, not just react. And that's what real wealth requires. Not just ideas or desires, but systems, daily actions, consistency. You don't get rich by accident. You don't stumble into financial peace. You create it, one decision at a time. You budget even when it's uncomfortable. You track your spending even when you'd rather not look. You cut back where needed, not because you're being punished, but because you're making room for growth. There's also a deep confidence that rises when you live by discipline. You begin to trust yourself. You stop second-guessing every move. You stop waiting for someone else to give you permission. You become your own leader, your own motivator, your own coach. That kind of self-trust is rare, but it's what separates those who just dream from those who actually build something that lasts. You may not see results right away, and that's okay. Diligence doesn't promise instant rewards. It promises compound return. What you do now, in the quiet moments, will echo into your future. What you do today determines what shows up months from now. That's how powerful this law is. It doesn't just change your finances. It reshapes your identity. It makes you the kind of person who doesn't back down when it gets hard. The kind of person who follows through. The kind of person who finishes what they start. And once you begin to live this way, you become unstoppable. Because now, you're not dependent on luck. You're not waiting for a miracle. You're building your life on solid ground. And no matter what comes your way, you'll have the tools to adapt, to recover, to grow. That's what this law gives you. Not just wealth, but wisdom. Not just results, but resilience. You were never meant to live at the mercy of circumstances. You were born to lead your life with strength and clarity. Discipline gives you that. Diligence shapes that. And when you combine the two, you become a force that money can't control. But one that money responds to, because wealth follows order. It follows structure. It follows those who are not afraid of the process. If that's you, if you're ready to build something that lasts, this law will carry you further than any quick win ever could. Number 7. The law of divine alignment and obedience. There comes a point in life where it's not just about how much effort you're putting in. It's not only about how smart you are, how disciplined you've been, or how many hours you've worked. It becomes about alignment. Are you in the right place, doing the right thing, at the right time, with the right heart? Because when your life is out of alignment, when your choices pull you in one direction, but your spirit is called in another, it creates resistance. And that resistance shows up in your finance. It shows up in your peace. It shows up in ways that can't always be measured by numbers, but are deeply felt in your daily life. This law, the law of divine alignment and obedience, is not about religion. It's about clarity. It's about knowing who you are, being honest about what you're doing, and choosing to walk in a direction that honors your truth. Because when you move in alignment with purpose, when your actions reflect what you were created to do, money begins to follow. Not because you forced it, but because you're no longer fighting yourself. You've stepped into flow. You've removed the tension. You've chosen the path that brings peace instead of pressure. Obedience is often misunderstood. People hear that word and think it means submission without thought or following rules blindly. But in truth, obedience is wisdom in motion. It's knowing what's right for your life and having the courage to walk in it, even when it doesn't make sense to everyone else. Obedience to your purpose, your calling, your internal guidance, that is the highest form of discipline. And when you live that way, provision begins to chase you. Opportunities appear. What once felt blocked suddenly opens. Because now, you're no longer asking for a blessing while standing in the wrong position. You're standing where you're supposed to be. And the blessing meets you there. Alignment is about more than just actions. It's about integrity. Are your words matching your values? Are your choices reflecting what matters most to you? Are you spending money in a way that honors your future, or just numbs the pain of the present? When you live in alignment, your money gains direction. You stop wasting it on things that don't serve your purpose. You start investing in things that bring clarity, peace, and long-term growth. You no longer need to impress others or compete with people who don't share your vision. You know who you are, and that self-knowledge gives you strength. People often feel stuck, not because they lack money, but because they lack alignment. They're pushing against doors that aren't theirs to open. They're forcing careers they don't love, chasing goals that aren't theirs, living lifestyles that look good but feel heavy. That misalignment drains them. It wears them down. It creates anxiety and confusion. And money can't flow freely in confusion. Money needs clarity. It needs structure. It needs a channel. And that channel is only created when you're walking in the direction you were meant to walk. Living by this law doesn't mean everything will be easy. It means everything will be guided. It means you'll have a deeper sense of when to move, when to pause, when to speak, when to act. You stop guessing and you start listening. Because alignment requires listening. It requires being honest with yourself when something no longer fits. When something isn't working, when something that used to feel right is now becoming a weight. That's the moment you choose to obey the shift. You don't ignore it. You don't suppress it. You honor it. And in doing so, you make room for the new to enter. The truth is, you can make money doing things that are out of alignment. But you won't feel fulfilled. You'll always be chasing more to fill a hole that money was never meant to fill. True abundance, the kind that brings both financial overflow and inner peace, only comes when you're doing what you were meant to do. That doesn't mean you need to quit your job today or change your entire life in a week. It means you begin listening more closely, taking steps that reflect your truth, saying yes to what aligns, saying no to what drains, building a life that feels like it was made for you, because it was. Obedience also means trusting timing. Sometimes you know what you're meant to do, but the path feels slow. You're doing the right things, but the results aren't immediate. In those moments, obedience means staying faithful, not quitting just because it's hard, not walking away just because it's quiet. Some of the most aligned paths are also the most demanding in the beginning. But that difficulty doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means you're being refined. You're being prepared for something bigger than what you can see right now. When you obey that inner call, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's not popular, you begin to live with strength. You stop second-guessing every move. You become more anchored. That confidence reflects in your work, your relationships, your financial decisions. You begin to carry yourself differently. Because now you're not just moving for survival, you're moving with purpose. You're building with intention. And that energy draws the right people, the right ideas, the right door. One of the most powerful things you can do is ask yourself, am I in alignment with what I say I want? If you want peace, are your choices peaceful? If you want financial freedom, are your habits supporting that? If you want more, Are you living as if you believe you're worthy of it? Because the law of divine alignment doesn't respond to wishful thinking. It responds to real decisions. When your words, your thoughts, your habits, and your direction all line up, everything changes. This law isn't loud. It doesn't shout. But when you obey it, it speaks through results. It speaks through favor. It speaks through divine timing. It speaks through provision that shows up when you need it most. And when you live this way, you stop feeling like life is something happening to you. You start realizing life is happening through you. Your choices matter. Your alignment matters. And obedience to what you know is right. That's not restriction. That's liberation. Everything you need is already connected to who you were created to be. You don't need to become someone else to prosper. You don't need to follow every trend. You need to align. You need to trust that your purpose is your provision. And when you walk in that purpose with courage and consistency, you'll see doors open that no one can close. You'll see increase in places where you once only saw lack. Because now, you're not forcing. You're flowing. You're not guessing. You're guided. And that is the most powerful position you can ever walk in. What you've just received isn't just knowledge, it's power. Real power. The kind that doesn't fade overnight. The kind that doesn't depend on your circumstances. These divine laws are now in your hands, and what you do with them will shape your future. You don't need to go back to survival mode. You don't need to chase or beg. You are aligned now. You are aware now. And from this moment forward, you walk with clarity, confidence, and divine authority over your finances and your life. This is your time, and it begins right now.